This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and in today's episode, I hung out in the middle of the Strip, and not the middle of the Strip you're thinking, near the Bellagio, Cosmo. I actually hung out at the Linq and Flamingo for quite a bit of time over the weekend. My brother was in town for Mexican Independence Day. He went to a concert, and he ended up staying at the Linq. So I wanted to break down what that area of the Strip is like, because I usually don't go there very often. And there are some pros, some cons, and some things you kind of have to understand about the difference between staying in Las Vegas and then, the differences between visiting Las Vegas and living in Las Vegas, just because there are slight differences that you have to take into account. So we'll dive into all of that coming up next. Okay, Ray, so let's go ahead and dive into it. So my brother came into town. He got here on Friday, and he ended up leaving on Sunday, so a very typical sort of weekend trip to Las Vegas. He came with his mother-in-law and then her sisters and aunts or whatever, and his wife, of course. So it was actually kind of a fun trip. So here's my major takeaways for people always ask like, why I don't go to that part of the Strip very often, which would be places like the Linq and Flamingo, Harrah's. And the simple answer is because parking is expensive at those properties. I tend to like to park at places like MGM Grand, the Wynn, Fontainebleau, Resorts World, because it's accessible for a local like me who comes to Las Vegas or comes to the Strip very often. So that's typically where I end up going, is places that are, one, very accessible by car, and two, have affordable parking, which is quite nice. Caesars properties in general, like across the board, blanket across the board, probably have the most expensive parking garages on the Las Vegas Strip. So if you're able to not park at a Caesars Entertainment parking garage, I highly recommend it. There's just no wiggle room. They're very, very strict. There's no like free hour. It basically starts charging you once you scan your way in. It's very for a company that when I worked there for like 9 months, that says that they are really like focused on targeting sort of like the very middle class of travelers. It's not very accessible in terms of parking. So that's actually one of the reasons I don't go to the middle of the Strip a lot, is because of parking in general. But other than parking, they are very difficult to get to if you are a local, just in terms of geography. Most of Caesars properties are on the east side of the Strip. So basically starting from the Planet Hollywood, and if you just go straight down, going north all the way to Harrah's, and of course you flip over, Caesars on the other side. That is all owned by Caesars Palace or Caesars Entertainment. So that area is actually quite hard to get to on that side, because on the opposite side of the freeway, because you have the I-15 that runs parallel with the Las Vegas Strip, and essentially all the exits that you get off on the I-15 funnel towards MGM properties until you get to Flamingo, which is where you can then go to Caesars, which then boom, you're there at Caesars Palace. Once you get past that, that's where you can get off of exits where you can get over to the Wynn, the Encore, then of course Fontainebleau, Resorts World as you go further north. So it is very much just a geography thing of having to cross over to the more populated part of the Strip, and just getting in and out and parking and all that other stuff. So now that we got the boring part out of the way, is like it's difficult to get to those areas. It's also just properties that I don't frequent very often, because they are meant to be for people who do not visit Vegas very often, or might be on a budget or are visiting and they have lots of people with them and they have to please a lot of people. And I would say that's probably one of the pros of this area of the Strip. Basically, we're talking from anywhere from, let's just say, the Cromwell to Harrah's, that sort of section, which has many hotels. You have the Cromwell, you have the Flamingo, you have the Linq, you have Linq Promenade, which is where the Ferris wheel is. Then you, of course, you have Harrah's as well. So Linq, O'Shea's, all that area is very tightly compact, but very accessible if you're somebody who wants to go to a lot of properties very quickly. That's probably one of the better areas where you're able to hit a lot of different hotels in a very short period of time, because the hotels themselves are all set back off of the strip quite a bit, and the front are all very much I don't think they're very walking friendly if you look in like the grand scheme of like space, but in terms of distance between properties, that area of the strip is actually very, very close together. You can hit like 3 hotels in less than 10 minutes. In terms of like the other side of the strip, you're thinking of places like Park MGM, Aria, Cosmopolitan, Bellagio. It can take about 30 minutes to get from one end to the other end because of sort of the just layout of the bridges and the sidewalks, which are much safer in terms of like from the street, and of course how they're spaced out. But again, they're further apart. So just geography. It's actually, in terms of walking and bang for your buck, a nice section of the strip to be able to go to and from. Especially somebody like me who really knows how to sort of navigate the strip, you can get up and down pretty quickly from one end to the other end, pretty fast. So this is another thing, is that like my brother always makes fun of me that like I'm like too highfalutin to hang out at those properties. And the thing is that I live here, so I can pick and choose whenever I want to go to these properties or go to a fancy place. I go to the strip probably once a week, and I like to be around fancy folks just because I'm gonna go to the strip. I have one night out to go, and I get to choose and pick the one time I want to go out. It's very different for people who have to visit Las Vegas and stay on the strip and stay in a hotel. The thing is that these hotels tend to be quite affordable in terms of places like the Linq, the Harrah's, Flamingo. These places are very much more approachable than something like, let's just say, Fontainebleau or the Wynn, which those places, even on an off day, can be $250 to $300 a night on a Wednesday. Which if you come on a Wednesday at Flamingo or Harrah's, you could probably get a room for probably about $40. So there is a huge difference between living here and visiting here. So I don't like ever look down on people who stay at places like the Linq or Harrah's, because honestly, their rooms are actually quite nice, and they're actually really much a step above what you would get at another like in that range property across the United States. It's going to be a step above. My grandparents came when they stayed at Harrah's with my brother a long time ago, I would say about 10 years ago, and the rooms I was so surprised with. They were very nice rooms, very clean. They had just been redone at Harrah's, and they're pretty spacious. You can fit like a little scooter in there because that's where they had to use one, and they're quite fine, I have to say. So I know that people always like to say like this place is nice and it's worth it. The thing is that the strip is very expensive, and it's not lost on me how pricey the strip can be. I had to go from parking at Caesars because I met with my brother in the afternoon, and then I didn't want to walk across the street, so I took another car. It was $25 to park, or $35 to park at Caesars, and then another $25 to park at the Linq. So essentially, we're at that point close to $60 for just parking, and that was for just going from one property to the next property. So it's very expensive. But the cool thing about the center of the strip, or this part of the strip, is that you have lots of options in terms of if you want to go eat or dining or drinking. It's quite good. And also I found lots of really good deals at places like O'Shea's or Flamingo or Linq, because I found out if you go to O'Shea's, they have $5 domestic beer for your selections. So they do have, it's obviously going to be bottled beer, but they have that. They also have their frozen Baileys, which people get very excited about. Ask my mom. But very important to note that if you go to O'Shea's and you order not a beer, by the way, this is like anytime. So anytime you can go and get a $5 beer at really, I believe, any of their bars. Again, just check, but there's plenty of promotions up and down the, this part of the strip. But $5 domestic beers. But if you get a mixed cocktail, which I got a Crown and Coke, and they charged me $20 for it. And that actually got me to step back for a second because for those of you that follow me quite often, I go to Delilah's quite a bit. Their cocktails are about $23, $24. But they're very high quality. And again, a lot goes into like sort of making that one cocktail. And is it overpriced? Of course it is. But I know kind of what I'm getting for when I pay for that. But when I get a Crown and Coke, no Crown and Coke in the world is worth $20 just because it's a Crown and Coke. It's nothing else was special. There was no special bitters poured in it. There was no presentation. It was in a plastic cup. It was soda and whiskey, and then that's all it is. So knowing that you can go someplace and get a Crown and Coke for, let's just say $12, and they're charging you $20, I was quite taken aback. But O'Shea's, really fine place if you want to go grab some beers. It's a good place to sort of congregate, hang out before like going out for the night. It's connected to other properties. It's also a place where you can find $10 craps, and they also have, I believe, $10 blackjack, which is also nice that you found a lot of very approachable tables in this area of the Strip. So the Linq had $10 craps tables on a Friday afternoon, which was quite nice. They also had $10 blackjack tables as well, which I would actually recommend going to the Linq for blackjack and craps, just because it's spacious enough and pretty approachable in terms of like the time of the day. Later at night, it does get very full, but if you go during the daytime, it's usually not too bad. But from there, we ended up walking over to the Flamingo, which the Flamingo has a really, really nice bars on the inside. And one of them being specifically, I believe, Havana 1957 or 1958, which is a brand new concept that they have there, which has live music. It's open air. It actually looks out to the pool area, or that you're walking sort of in this area. And that Havana, like 1958, looks really, really cool. My brother actually went there for breakfast, and he said it was quite good. They have like croquettes. They have Cubanos, obviously. They serve breakfast. They also do what they're really known for is their dinner, which does have live Latin music at nighttime, which is very, very cool. Very awesome concept for Flamingo to have that. I think that's great. And it's very nice. It's very much built with the idea that it is new Vegas, but with a little nod to the old school feel of like the 1950s in like Havana, Cuba. So that's really cool. It's right next to Meyer and Lansky. Bugsy and Lansky, or Lansky and Bugsy, or Meyer and Lansky. Oh my goodness, I have to get the name of the steakhouse right. But it's the steakhouse over at Flamingo, which does have a speakeasy in the back, which is called the Count Room. Very, very cool. Highly recommend it. I thought it was actually quite good. But the Flamingo itself, if you walk through it, you kind of just have to know kind of how to navigate. Kind of a fun little blast from the past, just because it's a very historic hotel, opened in the 1940s. If you want more history on that, go back a couple episodes. I do an episode about Vegas and the mob, and kind of talk about how the Flamingo came to be. But with that being said, as you kind of go through, as on your way to the south end of the Strip, you will actually find a Vanderpump. It's Vanderpump's Garden, and it's actually beautiful on the inside. And I'm glad I walked through because I had no idea where this was. They actually built out sort of like out of that little section of the casino where you can actually enter into the little Vanderpump sort of cocktail room without actually having to walk in the casino. So quite cool, but I really liked it. It looked really nice. I didn't actually have a cocktail in there because we were kind of walking through, but definitely a place that I would stop and have a drink. It's really great for like Instagram moments and stuff, but it's really fun. Also, what I really like about this area, they have a lot of bars that look out to the Strip that are inside the casino, which is a very unique sort of setup. So would highly recommend if you want to just have a cocktail and people watch. This is a great place to do it at the Flamingo bar that actually looks out to the Strip. You can also do that at the Linq. They have a really cool bar that looks out as well. The only thing I was disappointed that I wasn't able to do was the new disco show, or the disco thing at the Linq, which has a bar, and also, of course, it's like a 70s nightclub. That would have been really fun to check out. But with that being said, we ended up, what did we end up going? We did end up going to the Fontainebleau because they wanted to try something new. So we went to Mother Wolf. They had never been. They, I think, enjoyed it. But then we went back because we had to watch the boxing match between Crawford and Canelo, which this is also important. Like, you guys just have to get out there and like walk around when you're visiting and just ask questions. Just use context clues. Like, if you're here for like a fighting event like UFC or boxing or like Super Bowl, although Super Bowl people really know, walk up to a place that looks like a sports bar and say, "Are you guys showing the fight?" That's all you have to ask. It's one of our most common questions for sports bars during fight events is, are you, excuse me, are you showing the fight? And with that, I walked up to the Tilted Kilt, which is a chain, obviously, which is right there on the Linq Promenade. I said, "Are you guys showing the fight?" They said, "Yep, it's this much per person. This is the spending minimum," which was like $25, not too bad. And yeah, first come, first serve, starting at 5 o'clock. Boom. We figured out a place to watch the fight. So a lot of times it's just walking up to people and asking questions, and that's the way you get in. So that's actually where we did end up watching the fight, but that area is so great, and I have to say, like, Chayo Mexican food has to make a lot of money because people love going there. It's actually located inside of the Linq Hotel as well. It's a really great place if you want to like Latin music or Latin night. They do Latin nights on the weekends. Highly recommend it if you want Latin music. It's really, really fun time for sure. Tilted Kilt was great. It was great for like the atmosphere we're kind of going for, which is sort of like a fight night kind of feel. They do that for a lot of big events like UFC. So make sure you check out Tilted Kilt if you end up going. They did recommend Bottled Blonde to some other people that were there like a little bit later. And I just did not trust that information just because, again, Bottled Blonde has not proved that they can be a reliable sports watching destination on the Strip. But along the Linq Promenade, a lot of food options. This is a great place for people. If you don't know what you want to eat, this is a good street to walk down because it's very much hidden. Like, when you first walk past it, you're like, that's got to be it. And then there's so much more to discover. They have the American Bar, which is a really great hangout spot, especially if you're trying to hang out and sort of pregame before the night, or if you're just trying to watch like the football games for the daytime. I think that's a really great option, the American Bar. They also have Flour and Barley, which is a really fantastic Italian and pizza joint. They have In-N-Out, which is great for people who've never had it before. It's right on the Strip now, so you don't have to worry about it. There's going to be another one built on the Strip because In-N-Out likes Las Vegas. They also have the Ice Bar, which is there. And then they also have Off the Strip, which is another restaurant. They have Gordon Ramsay's Fish and Chips, which is actually just off of the main drive of Las Vegas Boulevard. And I love their fish and chips. To me, it's one of his best restaurants in Las Vegas, is just his fish and chip stand on the Linq Promenade. You do have to essentially stand and eat your food, but kind of adds to the whole sort of mystique of fish and chips. And all of this sort of culminating at the end of the promenade, which is the high roller, which is also where I believe the beginning of the zip line is to go down the Linq Promenade, which is quite cool. And lots of little shops, little knick-knack things. They have a hat shop down there. Kind of things you don't really need, but who knows? Maybe you like Hawaiian cookies, and you'll pop into the Hawaiian cookie store. What did I go through? I went through Harrah's. We didn't go to Harrah's, so that was the one place we did not go to. I would say, again, like, Harrah's is not one of my more favorite places to go to, just in terms of the layout of the hotel and the restaurants on the inside. They do have a new Gordon Ramsay restaurant in there, and they also have Ruth Chris, which is a very, very popular chain restaurant. If you're looking for sort of more of a familiar restaurant spot, Ruth Chris is located at Harrah's. But Linq is actually quite nice. I would recommend it for anybody who's younger and they want a place that's very, very unique and diverse in terms of how you're able to get up and down the Strip. The cool thing about this is it's right across the street from Caesar's Palace, where it's a very doable walk, depending on how good a walker you are. And from there, you're also able to walk north on the Strip and get to the Venetian, the Palazzo. So it's a very dynamic area at the Linq and the Flamingo. Of all these properties, I would recommend the Linq as probably having one of the better room setups. Cromwell actually has quite nice rooms, which that's going to be sort of on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Flamingo. How did I forget the street? But smaller. You're not going to spend your entire time there. And these properties themselves are not like places like Aria and Cosmo and Fontainebleau, where they're massive properties where you spend all day there. You're really there to be able to stay at a much cheaper room, but able to have the flexibility to go to a lot of different places if you stay in the center part of the Strip. So would recommend this to anybody who's looking to stay on the Strip on a budget. Definitely something worth taking a look at when you're coming to town. Final thoughts on this area. It's not for me. I went in the daytime and I had some fish and chips because I was waiting for my brother. And I can say right off the bat, just not my people. Too many families, too many smaller groups, a lot more people on a budget who are drinking a lot and a lot of, what do you call them, the slushy drinks. Also like daytime Vegas. I'm becoming much older now where I don't even like coming on the Strip at daytime. I need it to be nighttime, vampire hours, and I am there. And that is my thing. So, I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I wanted to hit another episode before the week went out. And I think this one actually was packed full with a lot of recommendations. Make sure to check this area of the Strip because they do have lots of deals right now in terms of, cocktails. And again, just check out and see if they have any happy hours. I didn't see any. But again, $5 domestic beer at the Linq and surrounding properties. So, thanks again, guys, for listening. Hopefully I see you out in town. If you see me, come up and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.